Alright, so now we're on to solving some fairly complex type problems. Now I'm going to remember when we are evaluating, there is a difference between evaluating and solving. When we evaluate things, we follow this order of operations. It says do whatever inside the parentheses first, do out your exponents, multiply and divide left to right, add and subtract left to right. Okay? So when we are evaluating, we are going in that order. But when we are solving, we are going in the opposite order, right? Brought up the analogy of the murder before. Okay? Think of evaluating as murdering. First you're motivated, you get the weapon, you got the dead body. Okay? Solving is just like solving the mystery. You start with the dead body, you figure out the murder weapon, then you figure out the motivation. Okay? So, what we're going to do is we are going to solve the mystery of y here. We want to know what y is. What value of y makes this a true statement? So what do we need y to be? Right? And remember, equality. This side equals this side. So our teeter-totter is in perfect balance. So whatever we do to one side, we need to also make sure we do to the other side. So we need to undo everything that's being done to this y. And you always start from the bottom up. We're going to get rid of addition and subtraction first. So I've got this addition here. I want to get rid of it. So I'm going to, since I'm adding 4, I do the opposite. Subtract 4. But to keep the balance, whatever I do to one side, I also have to do the other. So now I've got 3y equals 21. Okay? Still need to solve for y. Y needs to be all by itself to know what it is. So since I'm multiplying by 3, I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide by 3. So 21 divided by 3 is 7. So y equals a 7. Now, to check my answer, I can evaluate this side of the equation to make sure it works and follow that order. So in this case, I've only got multiplication and addition. So I plug the 7 in for y, and I say do my multiplication first. 3 times 7 is 21, plus 4, what do you know? It does equal 25. Okay, let's do this one. So with this one, same thing. Okay, I want to get rid of addition and subtraction first. Here I'm subtracting 4, so I want to do the opposite of that and add 4. So now I've got n over 3 equals 9. I need to isolate the variable. N needs to be all by itself to figure out the mystery of n. Since I'm dividing by 3, I'm going to multiply by 3. I do it to one side, got to do it to the other to maintain that balance. Over here, the 3's cancel. Left with n. 9 times 3, 27. Okay. Now, let's work with this one. And so in this one, I see that I'm multiplying by 7 and dividing by 2. Okay? And I need to get rid of the multiplication and the division together. Well, I could do one at a time, which is pretty common. People multiply both sides of the equation by 2, then divide both sides of the equation by 7. That's fine. You can do that. There's a really quick way of doing this called reciprocals. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to simply multiply by the reciprocal. And the reciprocal is you just take the numerator and the denominator and flip them. So the reciprocal of 7 over 2 would be 2 over 7. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 2 over 7. Okay? Because the 2 over 2 is going to cancel, 7 over 7 cancels, I'm left with x. Over here, 14 is a fraction, right? So I multiply the top together, so I'd end up with 28 over 7, right? 28 divided by 7 is, what, 4? Okay. Or, I could be a little tricky, and if I remember my Math 20 skills, I can remember 14 is what we call a composite number. So in other words, it's made up of different parts. I could rewrite 14 as 2 times 7, because that's what 14 is. It's 2 times 7 is 14. I see that I have a 7 over 7 that cancels, and I'm going to be left with 2 times 2, which again is 4. Okay. Now I'm going to work with this do this top one. I'll have to erase this, but same thing applies. I want to solve for p. I need to know what p is, so I need p to be all by itself. I have to isolate that variable. So I'm going to start at the bottom. Get rid of addition and subtraction first. Well, guess what? That addition and subtraction is trapped inside these parentheses. And parentheses really are the last thing that we would do. So we're not going to touch that yet, because now it's been trumped by those parentheses. So now we're going to get rid of the multiplication and division. Well, this 4 is being multiplied by that thing right there. So since we're multiplying by 4, we're going to do the opposite, which is divide by 4. Okay. So now I've got p minus 6 equals 4. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Now I can drop those parentheses that are there because they're not doing anything now. And go ahead and get rid of that 6. And again, we can always follow order of operations to evaluate this side of the equation to make sure it's going to equal 16. And I plug it in. 10 minus 6 is 4. 4 times this 4 on the outside is 16. So it worked. And I can check all the answers on everything else, which we'll do. Here, 27 divided by 3 is 9. 9 minus 4 is 5. Over here, 7 times 4 is 28. 28 divided by 2 is 14. So everything works.